And I think also it's important really to think about the fact that a pandemic doesn't actually change the fundamental reality that we live in. We never ever know what the next moment holds. We're all going to die at some point. We just don't know when. And I mean, we have to have courage in this sort of situation, because just living in the human realm requires us to have courage. If we want to accomplish anything, if we want to have any meaning or value in our life, we have to sort of orient ourselves in this way. So
Yeah, I
nothing's
mean,
really fundamentally different, but yet the superficial circumstances have changed completely.
yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, like when I would kind of go back and look at how I perceive meaning, right? I've always kind of categorized it into three different things. Like the way you perceive meaning, at least for me, for the longest time, it was either experiencing things of great beauty, whether it's, perceiving nature on a mountainside and just pondering, the vastness and awe of every moment for, billions of years that it took to get to this point. Experiencing like a true profound love, whether that is romantic, whether that's platonic, or whether that's just a sacrificial love, volunteering, doing charity work, that sort of thing, or facing disparity with courage, being able to face the unknown with with a sense of I guess zeal for the fact that win or lose, successful or not, like you are going to stand your ground and you are going to give it your all. I mean, it's kind of like a sports mindset you have, where you want to give it your 110%. But I feel like whether it's facing social isolation, whether it's facing the idea of death and your own mortality, you have to face that with courage, and you have to have faith, right, in yourself to overcome that. Whether it is finding a sense of meaning, whether it's rising to the challenge and facing adversity, um, but I don't think that, that's the only way that you can kind of, gain, or I don't want to say gain that perspective, but advance one's perspective.
I don't think it's the only way, but I think when you're in a situation that in my estimation, requires it, then if you don't do it, then I think you end up suffering the doubts and the second thoughts and the constant wondering, like what ifs.
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think it's that doubt that really like keeps people bogged down and sunken into their ego, right? Um, because I mean, everybody has that, those voices in their head, right? That brain noise of doubt, feeling that you're not good enough, feeling that your voice isn't loud enough. And that kind of stuff as well, makes you more dependent on the ego or those sensations of the moment, right? If you can't,
Oh yeah.
if you don't feel that you can find meaning, by expressing yourself, or through that inner journey, you're going to try and fill that emptiness with, whether it's products, a new car, I mean, food, alcohol, whatever the case may be. People use all kinds of things to kind of fill that emptiness. But where do you think I don't know, where do you think that sense of emptiness comes from? Like, do you think it's something that people, can overcome in any sense, or is it just something we have to cope with?
Well, I guess I would ask why you think the sense of emptiness is bad, because that sense of emptiness is in essence, like a like a adumbration of reality. That
Yeah.
that in a fundamental way, everything lacks. As the Buddhists talk about, it lacks interdependent. It's all interdependently originating. So nothing is inherently existing on its own. So they say it's empty because it's not real in and of itself as a single thing. Nothing is. It's all, so they say it's all empty. So, and it's only through a realization of emptiness that one comes to actual wisdom. And I don't care, and I'm not just talking about in a Buddhist tradition now.
Right.
I'm talking like in any wisdom tradition, and that emptiness is exemplified through what is termed in the West as like an apophatic expression. And you find this in like pseudo Dionysus, or anytime the divine is described as ineffable, unknowable, words that essentially describe a situation where you cannot know, perceive, even imagine the divine, right? So, and that is an expression of that as well. So I think emptiness and the understanding in an intellectual level, because I don't think someone can realize emptiness without specific methods of practice that are designed to bring that about. But one can intellectually understand it for sure. And one has, like you say, that sort of empty feeling that nothing satisfies. So I think the emptiness is important. I also think that if we examine the way you even describe these types of situations, one, you have someone acting courageously, even though they may have fear, with care for others. And then you have, on the other hand, someone who is trying to fill that void in themselves. They're self-concerned. Their focus is inward. It's not outward. And and you're right, that's like a collapsing in on itself of the ego, like a black hole that nothing can ever satisfy. No matter, like, all the riches of the universe will never be enough for that tyrant. And that's why it's important, if you have a view that says, all is the divine, then suddenly it negates the idea that, like, me as an individual self is somehow the focus of all of this, despite the fact it is the center of my perception. So, and that's something people practice. It's not something you can just turn on and off like a switch. But we have time. People have time to practice now, for sure. So, and they have time to read and study and learn and discover that there are other ways of being in the world that don't require you to be anxious and afraid and so self-concerned all the time.
Yeah, I feel that, like, I mean, at least in trying to perceive emptiness as a good thing, is that, once we start looking at all those things that we're really lacking, it just makes us feel uncomfortable, whether it be, those things that we want to have in life, or whether it is, those things that, we don't feel we have within ourselves. It just makes us feel uncomfortable. And I feel that a lot of people don't want to sit in that moment and just really, ponder the idea that, all happiness is just momentary, right? Everything is just momentary, it's temporary, and you're never going to have an absolute, whether it is, whether it's happiness, whether it's love, or whether it's friendship, right? And I feel that
But it's also the self. Like
Yeah.
you also like you don't have a self that's existent either. So it's like there's like a deluded being thinking they're real, wishing they could have things that aren't real. I mean, it's so ridiculous.
So let me ask you, I guess, how do you shift that perception of emptiness? How do you,
It's it's hard. I mean, it takes practice, and you have to be willing to submit yourself to the methods of an authentic spiritual path that is taught by an authentic spiritual master. And it's a life's work, and it might not even be accomplished at the end. So I think more than anything, it just requires a complete desire to grow as a person and a acknowledgement that the typical ways of being in the world just don't ultimately work or provide a sense of meaning like we talked about before. And this at least provides that, at least provides a sense of ultimate meaning. And it provides certainly more joy, but it's a lot more work. So, I mean, you certainly work for it. There's no question about that.
well, I feel like also, I don't know, I feel like if, the root, right, of yourself is, emptiness or nothingness, right?
Well,
It
it's the root of everything.
Yeah, it kind of strips away in a sense everything that you hold dear both about the world and yourself. It strips away everything that you think could bring you meaning or should bring you meaning in life, or everything you've been conditioned to believe about life
Well,
and
except for one.
the absolute.
Yeah, the divine.
So, I guess the question would be, how or what are the first steps to try and shift that focus towards something more spiritual, more absolute, more absolute even than yourself.
I mean, I think for a lot of people, the first step is to just see themselves and their own behavior. Because, like, you don't really have to go far to engage in this work. You don't have to go anywhere. Really, all you have to do is start watching the way your own mind works, how you behave. And, I mean, I could recommend books or practices or things, but ultimately it really boils down to a really brutally honest examination of the way that you lie to yourself almost continuously.
Well, I mean, I guess like we all lie to ourselves in such unique ways though. Like it's really hard for people to identify that.
Well, the lies I'm talking about are actually lies that are common to all of us, right? So this would be, for instance, we all lie to ourselves, and I'm going to choose an example here that is probably more controversial than it should be. But so we all lie to ourselves in the fact that we believe that we know that the Earth is a sphere, right? But the fact is, we don't actually know that. We've been shown some photographs, and we've been shown maybe some mathematical equations and some, diagrams, but we don't actually know it for ourselves. So that's a prime example of one way that we lie to ourselves, because we tell ourselves that we know things that we don't really know.
Right,
And
right.
if you really examine this and you break it down, you'll find there's not a whole lot that you do actually know that doesn't come from someone else, a book, a video, a teacher, some course you took in school, some article you read online, Dr. Whoever. And so once you break it down, it's like the things that we actually know for ourselves, it's minuscule compared to what we believe it to be.
Right, right. Well, I mean, it's not, it's, you just haven't had that direct experience of it, right? Like, I mean, I can say that I kind of know the earth is round because, I've been up in a plane and I've seen the curvature of the earth, right? But I've never been in space to where I have seen, the glory of the sphere firsthand, right?
Exactly. So, and this is an essentially trying to like redefine what knowledge is, right? Is knowledge something that I can just sort of like collect, like, you know, pieces of paper on the ground and put them in my pocket and now I know things? Or is knowledge something where I have to actually do it for myself? So I
Mm-hmm.
see it, experience it, then I say I can know it. It's
Well,
a totally different thing.
yeah. Well, I think it's good to differentiate the difference between facts and knowledge because anybody can learn a fact, right? But I feel that knowledge is when you get a hands-on experience, you incorporate it into yourself more. You incorporate it into your identity, right? So when you're doing these spiritual practices, and you are incorporating these experiences to make that sense of self be more in tune with the emptiness or the nothingness, or a better word, I guess, would
Or
be
reality.
stillness. Yeah, yeah, the
Yeah.
stillness of true reality.
Yeah. So basically it's like reformatting the body mind in with reality as the template instead of delusion. That would be my overall like description of spiritual practical methods, and you have to do them a lot. I mean, and I'm talking like hundreds of thousands or millions of times repeatedly in order to be able to really accomplish them in the way that they're meant.
Hmm.
But it's possible to do it as well.